And I go, we got a dog named Charlie. See you soon. And she's like, we don't have a dog. Let it go. But we don't have a dog. Stop it. We have a cat. Stop talking. We have a cat named Roxy. And the person busts into tears. And you go, why? What happened? They just lost their cat of 25 years. And she's also named Roxy. And I knew it was going to make everybody in the room cry. So that's why I didn't go with that and said, move on. Nobody cares. Well, but I didn't know. That's exactly right. You didn't know.
That's why I said move on.
That's why I said move on. I swear, these kids would get bonked in the head every time. If I yell duck, the last words they will say, that they'll ever say, is, why? Boom. Not how you build a business. We all need to have our why. But for kids, your why is because I said so. And there, we become our parents.
Beautiful business advice right there. I love it.
Is passed on. 80% of parenting is getting up off the couch when you don't want to. You know what to do.
Welcome back to The Ether, the show that disrupts the way you think about running your business. Join me, Brandon, and my co-host, Sean Delaney, the creator of What If, on today's episode. Our goal is to provide context around what we talk about so you have the clarity to cut through the noise and the confidence to grow and run a truly harmonious business. Let's jump in and take the next step to achieving business freedom.
Talk about disrupting the way you think about your business. How about just disrupting your day? I think that's what we're all about here. We're just going to disrupt you as a human being.
Set the bar where you know you can hurdle right over that sucker. Kidding.
That's right. So we got a big claim today on today's episode: how to grow your company by 17,000%.
Brandon,
that seems like a little bit of clickbait, and that's completely my fault.
That's totally you. You're so clickbaity.
Oh, I am. I had this conversation on our other podcast, Harmonious at Lunch, and I love a good clickbait title, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as I offer the disclaimer immediately that we will not be giving you step-by-step instructions of how to grow a company by 17,000%. But we're going to come close. Here's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's set the stage here. I lied to you. We are not going to show you how to grow your company by 17,000%, but we are going to show you a little bit behind the scenes. We were presented with, at What If, a very large opportunity potentially coming our way in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Now, what did we have to do behind the scenes to make sure we have the systems in place, the scalability, the finances, all of these things before we approach scaling? And I think it's really valuable for other small businesses and entrepreneurs to look at scaling from this perspective, because usually we just say, I want to grow, and then we kind of play catch up along the way. So Sean, are we cool with not giving the play-by-play of 17,000%, but at least showing the framework of how we approach it, growth of any size, especially 17,000%?
Yes, in fact, I have it right here, and you'll see step 1, grab your ankles.
I'm confused by step 1 already. I didn't know that was step 1.
It's the right list. Yes, let's do that. Whatever you said. I was just thinking about whatever joke I was going to say. No, whatever. Yes, let's do that.
Okay, so that's your physical therapy notes, obviously. But now let's grab the right sheet of paper next time. Okay, so we need to talk about growth. Growth is always, unless it's not, a projection, an estimation of some kind. We never have all of the details of how we're gonna grow, by what percentage we're gonna grow, unless we literally have signed contracts. So we need to be prepared for things like this, opportunities, however big or small. You could want to grow by 5 to 10%. You could want to grow by 1,000%. I'm not going to rain on your parade and say it's not possible, because I mean, look at some of the biggest companies in the world. Let's take decades ago, Apple. Apple grew very, very quickly and very aggressively. They must have had a plan in place to do that, because they didn't fall apart and they're still in existence today. So let's kind of unpack this from start to finish. So assuming whatever size your business is right now, Step 1 is grab your ankles. Sean, what was step
No.
2?
So step one, yes. So
After we stretched, what is step 2?
that's right. Oh, please. We're all getting older. That's not, no one should pull a hammy in this. Let's stretch out, people. Step 1, stretch out. Step 2, learn the fire exits. Step 3, have a good time. So in the good time, here's what we did. We have to stay, so you're balancing something here. There's a delicate balance. Let's talk about this balance that's going on. You have to, so what's happening with us? Let's do it in the specific, and then we'll give you the generality of it. Massive opportunity. And you're not kidding when you say like to the magnitude of 17,000%. And when the question was, but can you scale that fast and that big? We didn't bat an eye. We said, yeah, absolutely. Because the architecture that we have is infinitely scalable. And we know exactly who we are and exactly what our mission is. So the mission is not changing. We know that. And we know who we are. And so we know what we will do with that scaling and that growth. But we stopped for a second and said, there's a couple of ways we can do this. Does our offer have to be the same when this opportunity comes? Because they didn't come and say, we would have done a different calculation if they had said, take your exact offer today and multiply it by 15,000, right? They didn't say that. If they had said that, that would have been a different calculation. But it was the thing that you do, the essence of what you do, the brand promise that you have is needed by a very large number of clients. Here they are. How can you handle it? And so we said, well, it isn't just saying today we make pizzas, so we've got to just make a lot more pizzas. We said, what's the essence of what we're doing? And if it is disrupting their thinking, helping them chart a better path to exactly what we do, which is we help entrepreneurs go further, faster, funner. They need that. There's not just one container for that. We have lots of ways we can deliver on further, faster, funner. But we didn't just look at the existing containers first. We said, assuming it must be that container, what would it look like? And then we did the math. It takes this many hours and it takes this much allocation of resources to make this widget, that very specific widget. Therefore, if people are working this many hours producing this many widgets, how many people do we need? Well, you need this many. But then we said that's over 200 people. So you don't just hire 200 people in a minute, unless you have a business where you can do that and not compromise your brand promise. How do you hire 200 people to this thing? Well, and then when you do that, remember how you're going to manage those people. Shouldn't have more than 10 managers. 10 people that you're managing. Jesus had 12. Look what happened to him. Huh? So you need 10 is about your scope. So if we're going to go with that model, then we need managers, then you need directors, the whole organization we have to, but that's not what we were being asked. But we know how to do that. And what are the triggering events and how many clients in, what's the ramp up time, what's the training time. So to train somebody for this amount of time in this job, do we have all the training set up? Do we have all the processes mapped? Of course we do. For this very minute, when someone says, can you scale and how fast, we can say, this is how we scale. And every time we get to this triggering event, it triggers this hiring process. These are the notes that go out. These are the places they go. These are the people we find. And then we vet all our candidates with an incredible diagnostic. We know exactly who we're getting. And this is how we scale it out. That is one way. The other way you can do it, which we also mapped out then, is, well, we could have a different offer. And it would be this, and it would serve the same purpose. and it's easier to scale with far less people. The service doesn't decline. Totally different model to service this new opportunity. We have that all mapped out. But we had to make, but then we have to make a ton of assumptions. We had to make so many assumptions that some people would say, there's too much I don't know. So screw it. I'll figure it out when I get there. But then they're really flat-footed. Does it take extra thinking and more contingencies? Absolutely. Does it look like a big spider web mapping off into the distance saying, if this, then that? Yes. But that kind of thinking done now means that as the floodgates are opened, we know what to do. That is how you can, ahead of some of those companies that we hear out there, these unicorns that have astronomical growth, do it not because they planned it. So much money comes in that they hire a bunch of gray-haired people out there who know how to do things and said, quick, make it right. And they hemorrhaged tons of investment money in the getting right of it. Some of them still aren't even profitable. There are plenty of companies. Next time you travel, when you're in the back of your rideshare, look up companies that may still not be profitable, and yet you're using their services. Look at what I did there. From that, I got on that.
I'm going to read between the lines a little bit.
Giant companies. I'm turning a profit because they're still piecing it together, but you can get, that's one way to go. So much money is thrown at it. You hire somebody else to do it. And it seems like we should follow whatever plan they had. And their plan was, screw it, we don't need a plan. That's not a good plan. It's not any plan. So it's not a good one. Now, we also have to understand that the map is not the territory. A plan doesn't mean anything once you get out into the real world and things start happening. The plan is just you thinking ahead on what you might do. But the plan doesn't affect the world. Just like the map, you're like, oh man, we're lost. Well, redraw the plan. Like redraw the map. You are here. Now I'm here. No. So your plan cannot make things happen. But it helps you when you're lost, pull it out. And so we know now how to scale in many of the ways that it can happen. And so we're not losing sleep at night. We're chomping at the bit.
Well, I think that's the important part too, is because when people think about planning for anything, growth, new product launch, whatever it may be, it's, yes, it is good to have a plan because you need some sort of direction. But what's the saying in the military? Your plan falls apart as soon as you contact the enemy.
No plan survives contact with the enemy.
Yeah. So that's the real purpose of what we're getting at, is having one plan is better than no plans, but having 10 plans is a lot safer than having one plan. Not that we have that many, but asking ourselves multiple different questions. Like, okay, like you said, if we continue to just multiply the existing model, what does that look like? If we completely rework our model and our service offering, what does that look like? And fun fact here for the audience, the listener, you are tackling this with two separate companies in two completely different industries. So it's not like this is just unique to, service-based businesses. I won't go, I'll share as much detail, or you share as much detail as you want, but this is a very real opportunity, not a problem, in parallel companies that you have here. And neither of them would survive if you didn't go through this process of planning out contingencies, opportunities, trying to see potential challenges, but also knowing with 100% certainty that they are all not right. There is that level of assumption, like you said. There's that level of guesswork. How much of that can you overcome by having a really solid leadership team, or is it really just left up to chance?
So leadership team. Not really sure where you're going there with that one. I mean, you need the.
When I say
we're a lot
leadership
of
team,
talented people, so we'll figure it out in the end. I mean, that's one way to do it, but what kind of.
I was looking at it more from the perspective of the clients we work with. Typically, they are the founder of the business,
Yeah.
and they got themselves to this point, but they might not be the person to get themselves to 2x, 5x, 10x where they are now. So how do you go about surrounding yourself with the right people, both in your team, externally, from a consultant perspective, from hiring other executives on your team? Like, what's the approach to bring people onto your team when you are facing a scaling opportunity?
Okay. So here's the thing. We all know intuitively that you shouldn't take advice from someone who hasn't done the thing before. So there's lots of consultants. We see that clearly. In the world, there are lots of consultants who will tell you how to do something that they have never done before. And that's dumb, because if they've never done it before, they shouldn't tell me how to make the decisions. You're right. So you're going to do it on your own? Yeah. Have you ever done it before? No. So you're going to take the advice of someone who hasn't done it before. Yeah, but I'm Irish, so things always work out, right? Yes. Amen. But so, of course, you should seek some wizened counsel outside of where you are. A little bit of growth, like if you're pretty good at the thing, you might be able to get yourself to the next little bit of growth by learning something and then adjusting what you do. But if it's a massive change, you need to up everybody's game. You need to hire all kinds of new people. So in all this scenarios, so there's three, not two, there's 3 companies right now that we're involved with that have the potential for massive scaling. How could that be? Right place, right time, right networking. A lot of it is the very fact that the companies themselves are built to scale. Whether they want to or not, a business built to scale is also a business that is going to run well. And a lot of times entrepreneurs can't think big. They think built to scale means massive. Same thing around built to sell. Well, I don't want to sell it. Well, but building it to be able to sell it is building it so well. How many times people say, well, I want to change what I'm doing so I can sell it and get a higher multiple. Yeah. And then you do that for them and they say, well, now I don't know if I want to sell it because this business is fun and easier and it feels nimble and light and I love engaging with it. Yes. That's what makes it sellable and scalable as well. Obviously, a lot more detail from in there. But I thought also you were saying, how much can you get away with relying on talent versus an architecture or a structure and a plan on how to scale that structure?
That would be a terrible advice. Do not rely on talent. Rely on structure.
Well, so I'm gonna use an example you love. So Prince.
Oh, it's always Prince. How did I not see this coming?
Concert. You go, well, what notes is he going to play? Oh, nobody knows. He might not even know. What songs he's going to play? He's not surprising anybody with that. That show is tight. What happens when and how it's going to go down? Curated. The experience will be, you know what you can count on as well. From an execution standpoint, everybody knows exactly what they're going to do. But when it's your turn to solo, man, it's solo. But when I do this and when that happens, this is what we're doing. So there are rules, structure, and architecture. And And the user experience, the brand promise is it's going to be purple and electric and right, all the things that you might. I'm going to stop my adjectives because who knows what I'm going to say, because it's a Prince concert anyway. Well, and children are listening in New Zealand. Love our Kiwis. So shout out to New Zealand. We know what we're going to get from a Prince concert, but when we know there's going to be some whimsy and amazing guitar solos and the twins on roller skates. That's what we expect. That's what we're going to get. But then those artists, when he's kicking to them, they're very talented leaders, so they are allowed to riff and jam. I let you riff and jam on our stage because we're tight. We know how it's going to be. We know the experience we want people to have. But I trust you as a master of the instruments you play to play your solos. We're built that way. So,
but
examples, yes.
In that Prince example,
yeah,
there's still a structure like that.
Yes,
there's no question of talent, especially with Prince, the leader of the Electric Purple Circus. But the rest of the group, they still they know, because he's taken the lead and set the direction and planned all that stuff out. I'm sure they practice that too. You know more about Prince than I do, but there's some degree of preparation involved for him to be able to step back, being, my words, not yours, the control freak that he was about the perfection of the performance, so that he could step back and say, nope, you take over now. Now we all take over. So that's the same thing with building the company, is there is that preparation and trust between the members that has to be there.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Which is, so we have structure, we have our architecture, but there's plenty of room for the brilliance of people. So that's why I thought when you were saying, should you rely more on our architecture and structure, or more on or a plan, or more on talent, like i.e., well, we're all so great. Who needs that? Which you will see. I've seen. Struck me. Oh man, how long ago? It doesn't matter how long ago it was. I remember the first time a really, really good project manager who was great at delivering projects because they weren't his projects, and he was ruling everybody on the structure of these projects. And then he had his own project that he was doing, and it was a disaster. And why? Because he didn't do a lot of the stuff, because he was like, well, but I can get away without doing it. I make everyone do that because most people don't think their projects out right and use the tools right. So I'm the master. And from the old kung fu adage, right? How do you know the master? The master, like the grandmaster, is the one that knows when to break the rules. The master right under him knows all the rules inside and out. And mastery means you know when to break the rules. He was kind of going with that logic, and his project was a disaster because he missed the point, the essence of the thing itself. Yeah. And so we have to make sure that we have that. I'm lost in my own rhetoric here on it, but because there's so many ways we can go with that. But I agree with you. It is structure, it's talent. You have to give people the container and the structure in which to rip and jam, but not let them throw the whole thing away just because I know the thing so well I don't need it. You do need it. You need a plan. You need to think these things out. Just because you're all talented in the room doesn't mean you'll just be able to skip those parts that you don't like because your talent's going to make up for it. Sit down, plan it out. If I were to scale this, if I were suddenly handed 1,000 times the number of clients I currently have, how would I scale? And the things that you would change in order to be more scalable are probably the things that you should change in order to make your business more tolerable.
Yeah. And the other side of this equation that we kind of touched on, the talent piece, is interesting for me because let's use the 1,000 times number. It's unlikely, but it's possible. And I think this is where a lot of people make hard work for themselves, because I've heard it said, and I disagree with the statement, but the people in the room, I'm using round numbers, at $1 million in revenue will not be in the room at 20. The people in the room at 20 will not be in the room at 50, 100, and so on. I don't like that approach because I feel like we're just saying people are limited in their development. But those are the people that helped build this company. So how much of the structure should be focused on continual development of the talent of the individuals? Because Prince played for his first auditorium of what? We looked this up. It was like 90 people or something. And then he played at the halftime of the Super Bowl. So obviously people can be limitless. How much of the growth of the company needs to prioritize the growth of the individual to continue that streamlined growth?
It's a really stupid thing to say. Whoever said that thing that you just said should never.
I can name the person, but I won't. I respect most of what they say, but I won't give it away.
But I think that's stupid, and I'll tell you why. Many reasons why. Unless they just mean statistically, once you get to a certain size company, many of those people may no longer be there. Is that what they mean? Otherwise, how dumb? Because if you have people who were there at the start and have that much, and were the right people, they were the right people, bought into the mission, understand the heart, and have seen all the things, massive institution, and we're growing that whole way. We're not managed out appropriately. They could be nurtured and moved along the entire way. The massive institutional knowledge, the linchpins they become of that company for trying to build something that's going to last. It's incredible. And constantly churning through employees means not only are you losing that kind of continuity, you're losing the feeling of camaraderie and team spirit, because people come and go, doesn't matter. You're losing so much in productivity because it's a good 3 to 6 months before a new hire is even fully productive as the person you had before, who maybe didn't get along with some people, but knew the job and could do the job and didn't affect the brand, the output for the consumer. There's so many things wrong with that we shouldn't think that way. I don't think. And so obviously, if you can hire the right people from the start such that they are going to be additive to the very culture that you're trying to build, that would be ideal. But I certainly would not go into any situations that, here's the other thing, another giant mistake we could make. So if someone suddenly were to hear, we're going to give you tens of thousands of clients, and the faster you can handle all of them, the more money you'll make. What's the temptation? The temptation is to have warm bodies drooling over a keyboard, and we'll worry about the possible lack of service issues after, because we'll have more money than anybody. We can mayonnaise that later, and we would destroy our brand, and we would never get that back, and then we should fail. I would root against us in that situation, right? Or we could say, these are the ways we can scale to hit that number. We're going to make less money, but it's going to maintain exactly what the brand promise is. And people will just have to deal with it. And if some of them aren't there long enough because the queue's too long, I'm sorry, would you have liked it if we got to you faster with shitty service? Well, no, that's not what I'm asking for. Okay. Right.
Yeah, I heard that for the first time and I was blown away by it. Same thing. It's the dumbest statement you could make, because that, to me, what that says outside of everything else is we only looked at the money and said, I don't care about anything else. Because you're like, oh no, to get to from 10 million to 50 million, we need to put human beings aside, focus on the money, and do what's best for the money. You make your mission, your vision, your team irrelevant, and your clients end up feeling that.
It might also be they're assuming that to make those giant jumps that they have to so radically transform the company that people have to be doing totally different things. I don't know why that would also be the case. Enough times to say it like it's true all the time.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't make any sense.
So, I mean, for me, did we learn how to grow your company by 17,000%? No, we didn't. But we said we weren't going to.
No, but we kind of did. So
questions to ask and the ways to approach it.
You have to stick to what your core values are, no matter what, and know that you're going to. You have to think about the delivery. If you have chosen a great mission and have a wonderful value proposition, regardless of the vehicle you have for it, then the world deserves that thing, and it is incumbent upon you to find ways to get it to as many people as you can. That is thinking like, how do I build a very, very hyper scalable business? How do I deliver this value today and forever in the most prolific fashion? That is one way to think about your business. That is one lens to think about it. That is a scaling lens to think about it. You should be looking through that lens at least a bunch of the time. How's that for scientific metrics? At least a bunch of the time.
At least a bunch of the time. Do this sort of work.
25% of the time, it works all the time. Right? So, or whatever the quote is. All right. But
so that's enough of this episode, I think. But yeah, no, those are good principles, because those are the things that we miss when scaling. There's two ways to scale, to oversimplify it. It's with one person or group of people at the center of the organization, or it's like what we're talking about, building a structure that can scale, that people operate within, so that it's not held back at any individual point. You want it to be so nimble and free that it can grow seamlessly, and you're not stopping every 3-6 months to address and totally rework your entire company. That would defeat the whole purpose.
You can't scale because it's beyond either you, meaning you are the product,
yeah,
or because of somebody else. If you've made a person a linchpin, you don't have a business. You have a hobby.
Harsh words, but it's true. You got to hear it.
All right.
That's what we got. 17,000% starts with getting a business, not a hobby. We'll see you next week on the Ether.
See ya.